response to a government with no plan, a government that really takes seriously this kind of loan sharking, that looks to create a law that holds those accountable, that restricts their ability to prey on the most vulnerable, a government that cares for the people. It seems it will be up to the Labor members of the committee to put these proposals forward, but we look forward to having that debate in Select Committee. This is a bill that needs to be strengthened.
Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to take a short call on behalf of the Green Party to add my voice to my colleague Julianne Genters in support of this bill, and also in support of the points made by my Labour colleague just previous to me. This bill does do a whole host of things to protect, set up protections for vulnerable consumers from dodgy lenders and to help create an environment for responsible lending. It does put in place some tighter regulation around creditors, and we know that's really important. It makes consumer protection the primary purpose of the Act, you would have thought would have been there, and sets out responsibilities that the lender has, and it mandates the development of a responsible lending code, compliance with which will be evidence for responsible lending, and it clarifies the processes and rules around repossession. We've heard in this House and in the media, and if you're connected to any group working with the vulnerable in New Zealand, untold stories of the harm of loan sharks and dodgy lenders in our society. We've heard already tonight the stories of people going into casinos, seeking out people who are triply vulnerable in that environment, and setting up loan arrangements with 25% interest from day one. And the fact that that is legal in our current environment is kind of boggles the mind, really. We've heard stories of people taking out an $800 loan for an emergency in their family and ending up with a $70,000 debt. Again, that beggars belief that that's been able to go on for so long in this country. And we've heard that it's really not uncommon for some payday lender rates for 10% a week, and that the loans often compounding into four figures really quickly for quite small amounts of money. And in the area I live, in Porirua, there have been this budget services out there of 95% of the people that they're working with have got into trouble paying back high interest loans. This is a very widespread problem. And I think it is also important in the context of this, and which is why we support this legislation as a first step, and would also certainly support the discussion and the possibility of increasing or having a threshold on interest rates, because clearly that is out of control at the moment and the most vulnerable are paying. I do, being a Green, we look at everything in context, we look at systems, and I do just want to touch on briefly some of the context that this bill sits within and the reasons that people are getting into debt. And it is because we have low wages, and it is because our benefit levels were consciously set below the poverty level back in the 90s. And so people are driven to desperation. There are not many choices for many people in New Zealand, and who are in those economic circumstances. And I'd like to read you an abridged version of a extract from Inequality New Zealand Crisis by the Tongan Palangi poet Carlo Mila. She notes that inequality means watching people close to you, extended family, community networks, neighbours and friends who are persistently struggling in challenging circumstances to try to maintain their dignity, to keep their households afloat, to do their best for their children and to make good decisions by weighing up the constrained range of choices on offer to them. It is what happens when real banks won't lend you money and the loan sharks are wooing you. Cheap bait for bad debt. This is the context that this bill sits within. And we see so often in this House bills that are driving people to these places, and it isn't enough just to put the protections in place. We need the social structures to prevent the need for them. Kia ora.
President Sam Lotoenga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, tonight we've brought two bills to this House